as an untrained, civilian, I knew chances were I was going to be in charge of a 4 or 5 man Navy force on a freighter going across the Atlantic. Okay, that's about as much as I was trained for, and that would be it. I had orders to report to Norfolk. Well, in the meantime, vice president of Macy's that I had worked for went to Washington in the Defense Department or one of the War Departments, and at the same time that my orders for Norfolk come through, I got a separate set of orders superseding to report to Philadelphia. And in those days, computers were brand new. Macy's had one that was as big as this room, in a special room, built on springs, air conditioned. That's the way a computer ran in the 40s. And the Navy had set up they had a naval office in Philadelphia, and there was something like 6 personnel before the war. Well, they moved out to the old Sears. I think they knocked Sears out of a big building they had out of North Philadelphia, and the Navy took it over, and that was their main computer operation for either the East Coast or the United States. I don't know, I forgot. And as I say, a vice president of Macy's was second in command of this place. A Navy officer was in charge of it. And I'll tell you a funny story about that later on. But anyway, my orders were intercepted, and I was sent to this computer operation, and probably did more good there than I would have on the back of a freighter going across the Atlantic. Neither here nor there. That was my assignment, and Philadelphia was where my father-in-law lived, and life was different than it would have been on the rear end of a freighter, because he belonged to the Union League Club, and he was glad to have somebody to take down there to dinner and so forth. And pretty soon, within 2 blocks of where they lived in a suburb of Philadelphia, he maneuvered an apartment and moved my family over there. And so Mary and the kids were there, and the kids went to school in Leverington, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. And that was, I rode to work with other Navy officers like myself, working at this big computer factory out in North Philadelphia. We had a motor pool that drove back and forth, and that was the way I spent my 2 years in the Navy. It wasn't very hard service, I admit.
It was a supply depot.
I thought it was a supply depot.
Hmm?
I thought it was a supply depot.
I didn't hear.
I thought it was a supply depot in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, it was called the supply depot, but it was this tremendous. It was a supply depot when it had the 6 officers in it, and it was a supply depot when it had 600 officers in it, of which I was it was the supply side of the Navy, okay?
So the computers were deciding where supplies went?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
we turned out the information for the Navy on the East Coast. As I say, I've forgotten how far our authority extended. And there were 5 or 6 divisions in this big operation, and I wound up in the tool division. And there were 5 officers in different branches of this tool division, like machine tools and hand tools and you name it. And there was an officer in charge of each one with civilians under him, keeping the records and buying tools for the Navy. So I wound up, this had been going on for a few years when I got there, which was late 43 or 44, I forgot. And I was given the job of assistant to the officer who was in charge of the tool division of the East Coast of the Navy. What I knew, but didn't matter what I knew about tools. I knew about computers, and I knew about buying and selling. And we had these officers who were under the guy I worked for. We sat at the head of the room, and here were these tool divisions of the Navy, and there each one of these, we had 5 sections. They were keeping the records of the depots. You know, the Navy operated with depots around the country, and it was the job of this office to get continuous reports from the depots about supplies of the different tools on hand. And you know, just like a retail business, when the sweaters got the red sweaters got too low, you bought some more red sweaters. we were buying tools. I guess I did more good to the Navy where I was than I would have done someplace else.
Sure.
And the man I worked for, geez, I forgot, nicest guy. And he was a very smart individual. I'd forgotten what his job was, and I was his assistant.
And that was 2 years in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
And Macy's gave your job back right where you were when you left, 2 years later?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
Yeah. There was some confusion. What the hell? No, I guess there wasn't. There wasn't any problem, but the fact that, you know, that was the government when they took you away. Well, you were entitled to go back.
Sure. And what did you, just as an aside, what did the computers in Macy's do? Same thing, inventory and...
Oh, inventory and information for the buyers. For, you know, there was a handbag buyer, and there was a men's necktie buyer, and there were furniture buyers, and they each had a section of merchandise to first to keep the main store, and then it became complicated when we began to get branch stores, what kind of records to keep and how to keep them and where to keep them.
Sure.
But the buying in those days was still centralized by the buyer for men's shirts in Herald Square. Bought the shirts for first one additional store, then 2, and after a while we began to parcel out the standard replenishment. And the buyer would, in Herald Square, was responsible for keeping enough merchandise coming, but the stores would order instead of one person trying to order for 6, 7, 8, 12 stores.